Welcome back to Beyond Mortgage, everyone. I'm Dan Trinidad, and I can't tell you uh, in words, there aren't enough words to tell you how excited I am to have Cindy Ertman as our guest today. I've known Cindy a long time. I mean, this woman has the biggest heart and just a huge passion to help others. She's been a loan originator. That's how I met her, and she became a sales leader and helped grow a large mortgage banking company. She's an author, she's a coach, she's a speaker, she's a trainer, she's the founder of a couple different companies. And through all this is what I hope that you'll find and get so much value out of this podcast, because I mean, it's filled with wisdom. Her life and her business experience, her passion to live life at its fullest while transforming lives. Cindy, thank you for being on the podcast.
Well, thank you, Dan. That was quite an introduction. I love that. And it's such an honor to be here with you. It truly is. You're a great inspiration in my own life and have been for many, many years.
Well, thank you, Cindy. So for the sake of, for the people that, mostly loan officers, but there's a lot of other industries, for the, people that might not know who you are, why don't you tell a little bit about how you really got into the mortgage business? What motivated you to jump into the industry, and then how your life changed and progressed from there. Because I mean, you obviously have lots of goals and ambitions, and you're knocking all of them out of the park.
Well, I think I did get, an extra dose of the overachiever gene somewhere along the road. So
For sure.
that
Yes.
continues to drive and fuel me. And, I learned to just embrace change candidly, because obviously we know that's the one constant. And instead of learning to fear it, I learned to just go bring it on, and every day is a new day and we have to lean into new challenges. But so my background, as I'm sure, almost all loan originators, got here by accident. I go to college for this. I went to University of the Pacific in Northern California and graduated with a communications degree, but focused on journalism and public relations. And I really wanted to go down the marketing path. That was my mission and my goal. But while I was in college, I decided to get my real estate license, because I only had one class my last semester and just thought that would be a great thing to have. So when I got my first journalism job, they threw me in a back room, and it was a really lonely, sit at a typewriter and write all day. And so I decided, I think real estate sounds like more fun. So I ventured into real estate for 3 years and did great. But there was something about it for me that real estate, even though I loved real estate in general, just being a realtor didn't quite fuel me. So finally got a job to run a marketing department for a real estate development firm. And, that didn't go quite as planned either, because they decided, since I had a license, they threw me on their new housing track to try to sell their homes and do the marketing job. But anyway, long story short, not long after I accepted that job, they merged with an S&L down in Beverly Hills, California. It was Gibraltar Savings and Loan, and we quickly became the largest apartment developer in the state of California. And
Wow.
so, they moved me to SoCal. I ended up back near my hometown. And ultimately, I ended up in charge of land acquisition in Southern California for them. And when I started that job, they said, you start on Tuesday and you have no background in land acquisition. I said, don't worry, I'll teach myself. So I called every resource I had and, taught myself the job of how to, go into land acquisition. And we bought very large parcels of land. And it was really learning by fire. And that 5 years, Dan, definitely became the catalyst where, when I look at the success of my mortgage career, that was sort of the foundational roadmap, because everything I did during that space in my, early and mid 20s was outside my comfort zone.
I had no idea about this. I just know you as a loan officer.
And, and the only reason that job stopped was because the S&L industry got shut down by the federal government.
I
And I was
remember that well.
informed on a Friday that we were going to be padlocked on Monday, and I needed to look for a new job. So lo and behold, a friend of mine said, I think mortgage loan origination is like the best kept secret for women, and you should check it out. And I'm like, look, I'm an executive vice president for, and I was in that whole ego space. I don't want to be a loan rep. But I did decide to check it out, and I researched the largest, highest production loan center in Southern California at the time, which was California Federal Savings and Loan in Brentwood, California. And I said yes to becoming a mortgage loan originator 30 years ago, and began a long ride. And like most of us in the industry, you either love it or you hate it, but once it's in your blood,
Yeah,
it
it's hard to get out
it's just hard
completely.
to get out, and it has continued to fuel me 30 years later.
Wow, that's great. So at that time, in your mid 20s, I guess, were you had you gotten married yet?
I got married in college.
Okay, so
Again, it's
that's a
silly.
big part of this because you're not only starting a career, you're starting a life as a wife and have children and the balancing act of all of those things. You and I talked a little bit last night about so much of the things that sidetrack us as humans or as in the loan business, loan officers, that are the most important thing. Maybe share a little bit before you get into the next steps of everything else you did, how you balanced that, being a new wife, starting a new career. Did you have your children yet or any children yet?
Not yet,
Not yet.
but not long thereafter. I mean, actually, that's not entirely true because I actually started at California Federal Savings after the birth of my first son. So when I started in the mortgage space, I did have a baby.
Wow.
Sure.
Okay.
I went on to have three amazing kids that are now all grown and really special people in my life. But it's a lot, and anyone who is in this industry that has children that really, because I mean, look, I'm a recovering perfectionist for sure. But the reality is, like, I wanted to be like this amazing originator. I wanted to be hugely successful. I will tell you, at that moment in time, as challenging as it was to break into this industry, for me, I had just set the intention that failure wasn't an option. So I was going to have to figure it out. And the way I got started was not an easy one, which I'll share in a minute. But the reality is, with having, three children and trying to manage this thriving career, I realized, I mean, obviously I got to a couple of breaking points, which is how I got staff and partners and all that as I move forward. But I became just determined that I had to have the right level of support around me to be able to be a great mom and be a great leader and be a great originator. And it really is about the quality of the people that support us on every level.
What's interesting is back then I remember there weren't a lot of loan officers that figured that part out. There weren't very many loan officers. I don't know if you remember that actually were building teams.
That's
I
probably
mean,
very true.
there just wasn't. I mean, I didn't even think about that when I was an originator. I just was told if you want to grow a company, grow a company. If you want to do loans, do loans. And so I stopped doing loans. And boy, if I had thought about building a team, maybe I could still be originating loans. But I know how hard it's got to be being as I think the thing for you is that you're so driven to be good, to be great, to be a great spouse, a great mother, and you didn't want to just be a loan officer. You wanted to be, amongst the top in the country, which you definitely became. Um, so before we get into a little bit of that, so you built your team was the next step, and that's, I mean, you became a top producer. Tell me about that journey a little bit.
Well, I'd say the big pivotal moment in my career, and I was probably now maybe 10 years into my mortgage career. And, I always say, if you foundationally build your business correctly and you focus on, being productive on a day-to-day basis, and I think, for those of us that have been doing this for a very long time, there are those moments in our career, and there was probably 3 or 4 in my career, where all the stars align, and all of a sudden the market cooperates, interest rates cooperate, people feel sound and secure. You've built this strong database of people that know, like, and trust you, and all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh. So that's what happened to me, and I literally ended up with 30 million in process in 1 month with a part-time assistant, not knowing what hit me. and not knowing what to do because you can't get out from underneath the avalanche that's rolling, downhill. So I literally woke up one morning at 4 a.m. in tears, and I turned to my husband and I said, I either have to quit or I have to bring on a partner. I didn't even want just an LOA. I really felt like I needed somebody at that point in time fully vested in my business as I was. Now, I will tell you honestly, when I'm coaching high performance mortgage professionals today, I don't always recommend to do it the way I did it, because I did it out of sort of immediate desperation. Like, I have to have help right now. So I called a woman that I had helped get into the business a year before. She worked for a bank and I was working for a mortgage banking firm at the time. And I called her up at 6 a.m. in the morning and I said, I need a partner, like full blown partner. I'll give you 40% of my income. It was an amazing payday for her, clearly. But I said, look, I need you, and I need to know by 9 a.m. I gave her 3 hours to make a decision. It was like
You're
a
so
test.
patient.
So she called me at 9 and said, I'm in. We shook hands, never had a contract. We were partners for 17 years.
Wow.
So, and that was not without its own set of pain, because she'd only been in the business a year and she jumped onto a moving train. And I learned a lot of lessons the hard way through that transition, because I blew up some relationships because she wasn't ready to take on, what I had learned incrementally to take on. So I always say, we've got to hire them. We've got to train them. We've got to educate them. We've got to set expectations, and then we have to grow them. And so, about 6 months into my transition plan, we had to start over, and I had to start transitioning her most slowly. But ultimately, we lost a lot of realtors, but I became more committed to the partnership and to the growth of my team than to my realtors, by design, because otherwise I knew I couldn't grow a team. I had to have enough faith in them to help get them to the other side. And then we rebuilt Realtor Partners as a team that ultimately drove our business to 200 million in personal production.
Wow. Well, and you didn't know. So you brought on somebody to help you. You wanted somebody fully vested. You knew that. But, back at that time, there weren't a lot of people like you today that were, taking you on to help you build systems to coach you. There were a few coaching companies, but, most of us were learning by, making mistakes and making some adjustments and fixing. And you said you lost some realtor relationships. And tell us a little bit about, most importantly, that I want our listeners to understand is that the way you grow, the way you get to your next step is by those mistakes, those failures, those setbacks that you have. So maybe you can share a little bit about how you responded from, those breaking points to the next level. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, and let's face it, growth is not always easy, because to grow, we have to change, right? Like, we have to make intentional choice. And it's a lot about what I teach, because my whole underlying platform is intentional choice. We have the ability to choose. My new tagline is success is a choice. And I really believe we have to choose that. And
Now,
with
did you feel that then?
yes.
It was just natural.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know that I could say it was natural, but I was, in fact, I was writing a blog recently, and I had remembered a story of being with Tim Rahim, who was definitely a mentor and a good friend and still is. And I was on the faculty of Loan Toolbox for 17 years, coaching, teaching, training under that platform nationally. But I remember being out at his office one day, and we were with our faculty. And I kind of had this thing that Tim was going to ask me to do something amazing. Like, he was going to ask me to lead a national event, or and it was really funny because we got into this conversation, just the two of us. And he said, Cindy, nobody can make you want to be great. You have to choose to be great. Now, that sounds like such a simple thing, but there was something about that statement that just really resonated from a core level. And I remember getting in my car. It was about an hour and a half drive back to Manhattan Beach, California, where I live. And I remember thinking, that's right. I can't put that on him or anybody else to make me great. I have to make a choice to want to be great and to be excellent at my craft. And I just made a commitment to myself in the car that day that I had to own that, and I had to seek the resources. I had to go find a talented coach, and I was going to invest in myself and my business, and I was going to become the absolute best originator that I could be. And someone yesterday said to me, well, your business is so transactional. I said, well, to some degree, yes. But at the end of the day, my success, without question, was the ability to build deep connected relationships.
For sure. Yeah.
So we're really relationship specialists. And so I work really intimately with my clients now on ways to really build that muscle, to build that ability to connect. And just like anything else, it's a learned skill and we can all do it. But that really was my gift, to focus on ways that I could connect in a deeper way with people, get to know them. I'm naturally curious. I'm a high I on the just, I'm an ID. So I love the interpersonal relationship, but I just became very focused on getting the right support, figuring out what that was, creating a vision for my, like there's a company vision if you work for a company, and then if you're a manager, you have a vision. But for my team, just getting some clarity around what is it that you want to create and why. And so starting with kind of creating a vision, and then, dissecting it down from there to what are actionable steps to help move the needle forward, and, completing one task before you start another, prioritizing, these are the 3 goals for the next 90 days. And here's 3 action steps that I can take, so that you're making incremental steps, intentionally.
So was it after your meeting with Tim and your decision to become great, is that when you started doing different things? So I know from being an originator, you decided to be a sales manager. So you went into partnership in an office, and then you went into a role where you were coaching and helping loan officers in Southern California, maybe in the whole company. Um, is that when you decided to be great? Is that when you decided to take on these different things, or did they just fall in your lap?
Well, it's funny because nothing has really ever fallen in my lap. I do believe that, my sister has said my whole life, how does all this stuff happen to you? She says, all this amazing stuff happens to you. I'm like, well, no, actually it didn't happen to me. Like, one thing I did, and it sounds funny because I don't know why I never talked about this, but I would go to probably 3 mortgage conferences a year. I would always go to Sales Mastery, Todd Duncan's conference, and I would go to Mastermind Summit when Stephen Marshall, started putting that on. And then Loan Toolbox. Tim started doing conferences, and I would attend and participate in those conferences. But what I did early on in my career is I would go to a conference and I would set my intention on meeting one person, and I would seek that person out. Like, okay, I'm going to meet Dave Savage at this conference, and I'm not just going to shake Dave's hand. I want to have a conversation and leave that conference with Dave Savage knowing who Cindy Ertman is. Like, I would go to the conference with one intention. And it was just like figuring out how to get to a realtor that I wanted to know. I would find a way where they were going to be at, or, and I would find a way to interact with them. And then it's just like building a realtor partnership. You can't stop there. Then I come back to the office, write a handwritten thank you note. So great to meet you at Mastermind Summit. Look forward to greater connection. Let me know what I can do to, serve you and your community. And so it was just that additional step to try to build a relationship. I did that with Barry Habib. I did that with Todd Duncan. I did that with, I'm sure, Tim Rahim. I did that. But I just would go down the list, and whoever was like the top producer in the nation, and I started seeking relationship with the leaders.
Yeah, and you did that so well. So a lot of loan officers are struggling right now with, a lot of the top loan officers are struggling with, do I build a team? Do I coach loan officers? Do I take another role? Or do I stick with what I've been very good at? Why did you decide to manage loan officers, to build an office, and not just continue to build your superstar production?
Well, only a couple of years into mortgage origination, I ended up switching from working for a bank and went to work for a broker shop for about 8 years.
Right.
And he was seeking a sales manager, and I took on that role. I had 8 loan officers, working with me. And through that relationship, we ended up putting together, it was really, I believe, the first, no one had ever heard of in-house lending. This was at the time unheard of, unthinkable, really. And my business partner at the time put a relationship together, an in-house relationship with Shorewood Realtors, which was the largest privately owned real estate company in LA. And they were not happy. Like the agents were not happy, the managers were not happy. But I did request to not only manage that team, but to be the in-house lender for their largest producing office in Manhattan Beach. So I was an in-house lender for them for 13 and a half years. And I led a team of 9 of us that supported all of their offices. And I think I didn't know I had natural leadership ability, but I really enjoyed, because it made me better. It's probably why I lead a mastermind group. There's a power of the collective. So coming together with the team and sharing ideas, because you learn from the person sitting next to you, not just from what you can teach. So really being very collaborative in nature and, building the in-house relationship, finding new ways to help my loan originators build relationship and secure more business. And it just became a part that very much fueled me. But as you well know, leading originators, they don't all produce. It creates lots of management challenges and headaches. And sometimes you feel like you're herding cats. So,
You said it. You said it.
well, there was times because look, being a top producer, being around other people that are motivated to take it to the next level fuels me without question. But when you're leading, when I transitioned to come to work with Platinum Capital, and I don't know how many years we were at Platinum Capital before we transitioned to RPM Mortgage, but when I was leading that team for, gosh, almost a long, long, long time. And, there was many years where I led a team of 65 people and we had 32 LOs. So it was a pretty big behemoth to lead and to manage.
Yeah, it sure was.
So at that point, is when my partnership shifted and I started giving away a bigger piece of the pie to my partner, got a stronger team around me. I had a team of 4 people so that I could focus on managing, teaching, training, and elevated, the LOs that were around me. And I spent less one-on-one time with my own clients because I had a partner that sort of took that ball, but I continued to make rain for my team, and I continue to make rain for my team today.
Yeah. So I want to get to that question you left me with hanging last night, saying the big question. So afterwards, you obviously became an author and a coach and a speaker, and now you've got a tremendous coaching and training company, and I mean, you're making a difference in so many people's lives.
Yeah.
And but that all that started by an event you went to, an event that you went to that you were somewhat nervous about going to, and from what I understand, what you told me, that after a couple of days of it, you wanted to get out of there. Share a little bit about that experience, because I think that was the pivotal point, if I understood it correctly, that caused you to say, I've got so much more to give, share, and where I could fulfill my passion of transforming lives. So tell us a little bit of how that started.
Life I always say success is a journey, right? I mean, it's an evolutionary process. And that's why I really want people to enjoy the journey along the way, because we're always striving to get somewhere, but it's really about where are we today and how can we make the most of it? Because, I don't want to wait for happiness till tomorrow. So I kind of look at life as, why do I want to make more money or be more successful? It's really about creating a more fulfilling life experience. So if we're not, being fulfilled in our life, then why are we doing this? So I always kind of use that as my beacon. I want to feel fulfilled. I want to feel like I'm contributing, that I'm making a difference in my own little, spot in the world. But I had done so much mortgage training. I had such great coaches, went to conferences, I was really a seeker of information. I was an information junkie, still am. But I sort of got drawn into the personal development path and realized that it was really intriguing to me because it opened up a different way of thinking. And I had a very traumatic event that occurred. One of my number 1 referral partners, Dee Dee Keller, she was also my best friend, on the planet. And she was killed by a jealous ex-husband, and very, very, very suddenly. It turned our whole community upside down, and so sad. It changed my life in an instant, because she was like second mom to my kids and total and utter soul sister. And I had learned two incredible lessons from her, and that was, um, unconditional love and non-judgment. She just loved people unconditionally and just held no judgment against anyone. Just a beautiful, beautiful spirit. And so I proclaimed to the world after her death that I was going to carry her light forth in the world. Of course, I had no idea like how or what that was going to look like. And not long after that was at Mastermind Summit in Vegas, and met Jack Canfield, who was the co-author of the Chicken Soup for the Soul books and the Success Principles. So I introduced myself to Jack, got kind of intrigued when I read the Success Principles about his work. And while raising three kids, running a branch of 65 people, being a top producer, and running a region with my partner in Southern California, I decided to sign up for Jack Canfield's Train the Trainer program, which was a year-long training program, 3 physical weeks together in 1 year. My husband thought I was insane. I'm sure all my friends did too.
You are.
I am. But I just felt compelled to do it. So it was with 100 trainers from all over the world. I was doing some training, so I wanted to be better in that arena and continue to hone my skills. So I went to that. It was not at all what I thought it was. I thought I was going to get this business speaking training or something. I'm not sure what I really thought, but I felt like I walked into a tribe that I didn't belong in. I'm in my little tight jeans and my little blazer and my diamond necklace, and they're in Birkenstock sandals, and I was just like, oh my gosh, a bunch of spiritual people. So I spent 3 days wanting to exit that training and figure out how I was going to get my $15,000 back, because I'd clearly made a terrible mistake. But I mean, seriously, like I was traumatized for 3 days. But on the 4th day, he taught me meditation. And on the 4th day, I sort of had this revelation and meditation. And, I shared some of my thoughts with the group, and suddenly, people leaned in, and I started to feel like not such an outsider. And I started to think, I'm super uncomfortable, which probably means I should be here, because I'm tapping into something that I have not yet experienced.
That's a key point.
And I'll tell you, it was challenged me on many, many, many levels through that year. But I realized, I think I shared this with you yesterday, when I got to the end of that training, some of my best friends on the planet today come from that experience at Train the Trainer. When I finished that training, I remember going up to Jack and just giving him a huge hug with tears like pouring down my face, just saying, you took me on my longest journey. You transitioned me from my head to my heart. And I felt myself physically drop back into my body, moving at the pace that I moved, running a mortgage company. I was so in my head, about doing everything right. And everything shifted, Dan, after that experience. Like, the way I led was different. My children would tell you they watched me transform right before their eyes. I was more connected. I was more present. I was calmer. I was a better leader. I was more understanding. I was more patient. And I realized that it became one of the single biggest transformational experiences of my life.
And that was about 6 years ago?
This was in 2009. So it's 10
years.
11 years ago.
Okay.
10 and a half years ago.
Man. Okay, so from that, you wrote a book, you had a TV show. You've been asked to speak. You're on all kinds of podcasts. You've got one of the best training companies in the industry. You're changing people's lives. You're the founder of Defining Difference. So I think it was recently you attended an event. So what I want people to hear, what she told me yesterday, that really helped me personally, I think it could help everybody on this podcast, is that she went to a conference, and as successful as she is in the track she's running, she went to a group full of speakers and famous speakers and powerful leaders, and led a conference, or you were the MC of the conference, I think you said.
I am one of the 4 days, yes.
So tell us about that experience, because that little story really impacted me.
Well, I was sharing with Dan that even though I do get on stages now in fairly large stages, I had, and I'm sure many of you can relate to this because, you know, we know public speaking is a very scary thing. But I mean, I had a level of fear around public speaking since the time I was young. Like I remember being in speech class in the 8th grade and like shaking so badly I couldn't even control myself. And that carried with me into adulthood, to getting in front of real estate groups. I could only speak in front of a real estate group if I was hanging on to like a podium with both hands. Like I mean, seriously, I read books, I hired therapists. I couldn't figure out, I clearly felt like I had something to say because I wanted to be able to work through it. But if you'd asked me 10 years ago, could I be doing what I'm doing now? I probably would have said no. But I realized that the only thing that helped me get through that fear, or at least help it take a back seat, was to continue to do the thing that I feared.
I remember when you got on stage in Las Vegas, and how focused yet how nervous you were, and you killed it. And then you told me the story about that you couldn't move your feet, and you wanted to obviously get better. I mean, it's a big challenge for me too, and that's how we started that conversation. Is I attended the Renee Rodriguez's Amplify a few months ago that really changed me and my confidence level, and but I still fear getting up on a stage in front of thousands of people
Right.
and speaking really from my heart, and without either getting emotional or stumbling up on my content. So those are the things. So share like that growth. So I know you went from that first speech in Vegas to now it's easy for you.
Well, easy is an interesting word. Easy is probably the wrong word because do I still stress over it? Of course. To speak to what you asked me about in terms of the conference I just spoke at, I was in Panama 2 weeks ago. Fast forward after training with Jack. The amazing thing is Jack's president, Patty Aubrey, of 30 years, the only time she personally participated in any of his trainings is the year I did train the trainer. So she participated for the entire year. She has become, I was on the phone with her last night till midnight. She's one of my best friends, and she's one of the most brilliant women in the world from my perspective, and one of the most supportive friends I have. But the thing that was amazing, fast forward through a lot of continuing to do the work, staying connected to Jack, helping support him and what he's doing in the world, because I think he makes an impact. He also has done a lot to help me in my career and given me some great opportunities. And so about 4 years ago, I was voted into his Transformational Leadership Council, which is a group of transformational leaders, 150 transformational leaders from all over the world. And of course, when you go to your first event, we meet 10 days a year together. And it's the likes of Ivan Meisner, who owns BNI Business Network International, John Gray, who wrote Men Are From Mars, Lisa Nichols, who's the #1 motivational speaker in the world. So you kind of go, what am I doing in that group? You know, you go into that less than story, but I had to believe I was there for a reason. So 2 weeks ago, I was actually asked to MC that conference for one day and to present. Now, I can tell you, I always get a little challenged when I present, but to present to leaders that are out transforming the world, speaking for a living, I'm like, what am I going to say that's going to make a difference? But one thing that I learned, and it is one of the things, Dan, that helped me move past my debilitating fear of public speaking, there was two things. One is realizing that the fear comes from, at least I'll speak for myself, in that we want to be something that maybe we think we're not, or we're not as good as the Barry Habibs on stage, or, you know, we go into the comparison. And what I realized is that it's not about me at all. And I remind myself, and I pray right before I go on every stage, and I do a meditation, it's about them, you know, and I just go into it. Even when I'm in Vegas speaking to 2,000 people, I go onto that stage, I hope I connect with one person. And I like to look into people's eyes, because if I can feel that connection, even from the people in the front row, it makes me feel more comfortable and safe. And I just speak to that one person. Like, I hope I can make a difference or impact one person. So one, realize that it has nothing to do with me and not trying to be anybody else. And that has been a really big lesson for me, to just realize I have one responsibility, and that is to be the best version of Cindy Ertman that I can be, and to show up as who I am with all my faults and idiosyncrasies. And people either lean in or they lean away. But I always say you're going to be judged anyway, so why not be judged for who you really are?
Wow.
Right?
Yeah. That is so helpful. So when did the question happen?
Okay, so I shared with Dan that I had a life-altering question. This was probably about 8 years ago. And I actually went to a therapist. She's kind of a spiritual therapist. She was Jack's spiritual teacher in Canfield. So I had met her and decided to go do some sessions with her. And I was in a very, very disconnected marriage. And I didn't really realize how disconnected my marriage was till I went through Train the Trainer. Because when I got reconnected to my heart and my feelings, I realized that John and I were in a very disconnected marriage. So when I went to see Deirdre, she asked me this question in the context of my marriage, but I now, I presented it to stage to TLC because Deirdre was in the audience. But the question she asked me is that if you fast forward your life 10 years from now, and absolutely nothing has changed in any area of your life, are you happy, satisfied, and fulfilled? And I will tell you, I won't say what I blurted out at the moment. It was in the context of my marriage, but it was well, actually, it was just a hell no. It was absolutely hell no. Like, I remember it just was a visceral response, because to me, to spend 10 years of my life feeling that way and disconnected, like, there's no time to live in mediocrity in my life. Like, I won't have it. It's a non-negotiable. So it was that question that created massive change, and ultimately, what ended my marriage, because I went down a path to try to put the pieces really back together, and it takes two, right? But that question I now ask to all my coaching clients in the context of their business, their health, their wellness, their financial life, are you happy, satisfied, and fulfilled? Because if not, the time to make change is now, because time goes by in the blink of an eye, and 10 years goes by like that. And if we're not happy, satisfied, and fulfilled, it's up to us to make a decision to intentionally kind of change our course. And I made some pretty big decisions and changed my course.
You sure did. Well, you're talking my language. I mean, you know that I talk frequently about the long game, but you got to play the short game. The compound effect, really, on a daily basis to achieve your long-term goals. So I'm going to shift gears a little bit, and I want you to give your I mean, as a coach, you've heard a lot, and as a loan officer, you experienced a lot. Um, what are the most important things that you feel matter to an originator or somebody that's building their career? What really matters?
Well, I'm one of the first places that I start when I'm working with clients, and I primarily coach fairly high performance mortgage professionals, and I coach a lot of originating branch managers. So they're leading teams, they're building and growing their own production. And I usually start with them on that foundationally first, because usually the bottom line of their branch is far more secure if they've got their own production kind of in their own team, humming and rolled in, so they can focus then on leadership and building culture and all that. But I think, in fact, I was leading my Mortgage Mastermind Elite call this morning, and I asked them two questions this morning. And one was on, what's your biggest challenge with your own personal time management on a day-to-day basis? And what's one thing that drains your energy every single day? So, clearly most loan originators get stuck in the administrative part of their job of pushing things through the system, collecting all the paperwork. First thing I do with my group is I give them a stuffed monkey that says, don't take the monkey back. And we teach them how to train their staff, empower their staff, and to let go. But I always suggest to originators to take a few minutes and really start with, because I did this, and this is what helped me build my business to my, biggest year ever, which was, what piece of this pie do I actually really want to do?
Perfect. Yeah.
And one of the exercises I gave them this morning, and it's very simple, you don't need a form to do it. But if you really do this exercise, it transformed my life and it's transformed a lot of people I've coach's life, is to just log everything you do during the course of 2 days on a normal business days and like 15-minute increments, and no one's going to see it. So be honest with yourself. You know, one of my originators a couple of weeks ago, she said, oh my gosh, I'm wasting 2 hours in the morning and I didn't even know it. You know, she was piddling around the house and pretending like she was cleaning and on Facebook and listening to news. And she said, I just really am wasting like 8 hours a week. So, but if you, even if you're taking, you know, your dog for a walk, or you're taking out the trash, or, but log what you're really doing. And then when you get to the end of the 2 days, put a plus or a minus next to every single thing that you've done. And put a plus if it's fueling you and it's something that, you know, you feel it's something you want to continue to do. And put a minus if it's really not fueling you. If it's not something, maybe you don't want to take the dog for a walk, or, you know, I mean, whatever it is, like, be honest about. And then you transfer all the negatives to a separate sheet. When I did this exercise, Dan, I thought I needed another LOA. I needed another transaction coordinator. I was sure of that in my business. But when I looked at that, I realized it wasn't that. It was, I had no time to manage my own life. And I decided that I took my income that year. At the time we were 1099, W-2 today, but I took my income and I divided it by 2,080 hours, a normal work, you know, work week for the year. And I said, oh my gosh, here's my hourly rate. And I could go hire a personal assistant for $15 an hour, which the very next day I went out to my network, you know, group and requested a recommendation for a personal assistant for 15 hours a week at $15 an hour. And it began to change my life. And I have had a personal assistant ever since. And I mean, they do everything. They book my travel, they do my research, they do help with some of my business and marketing. They go pick up my hairspray, everything that is not a good use of my time, they do. And that freed me up to be focused on business when I was at business, because I didn't have to go do 10 personal things. Someone else
Yes.
could take those off my plate.
So what I hear, so from that question, the things that matter, what I got out of what you just said is really, you know, make sure you define what you love, what brings you happiness and joy in your work, with your health, with whatever, and get rid of everything else. And then the challenge becomes, you know, how do you get rid of everything else? You hire an assistant, or, you know, there's,
I mean, obviously, then you got to look at that and say, and it's not going to happen overnight, clearly, but you make some, you know, it starts to be a filter for the way we make choices, right? So the more we can get the things off of our plate that don't fuel us, and if it's, you don't have any support and you're funneling, you know, the whole file through the system, as some people do, then maybe you don't have the economics to support a full-time LOA, but maybe you could share one with 2 other people. There's lots of ways to gain help so that you can begin, because you can't grow a business until you begin to peel layers off of, you know, the responsibility. And also when you get clear on what it is that you want to do and what your genuine gifts are, if the more we can keep you in that space, really, the more we fuel people. You know, we get fueled by doing the things that we love. So for me, being a relationship person, you know, my sole focus when I was at the highlight of my mortgage career, pre-qualifying the clients, locking the loan, and tossing the ball, like that was my wheelhouse. And I became very, very good about it. And I had a team that was rock solid, that would take that loan from contract to close. And the only times I communicated with the clients, obviously I would get brought back in if there was a major crisis or fire, because I was a solution specialist. But at the end of the day, the only time I continued to communicate with the client was I called out, congratulations, your loan's approved. And I called out, congratulations, your loan is funded. So I got to make the 2 happy calls, you know.
you were the hero. Yeah.
But the other thing too is I think we do get stuck in our own ego, and I see it with loan originators, and I went through this too. I'm speaking from experience of, we want to be the hero. We want to be the one that's loved. But what I began to learn is I wanted my LOA to be the one that was loved more, because they still loved me. But when she started getting the gifts and people were calling me going, oh my God, you know, Annie's amazing. It's so perfect, because that meant I was doing my job correctly. You know, she was taking it through. She had the client contact. She was doing the status reports. She was doing all the updates with my realtors, and I could focus on building and growing my business, calling more past clients, reaching out to referral partners. So I really encourage people, real loan originators hate the word time blocking. I hate it too. People are not good at it. They don't show up for their own appointment frequently. But major successful loan originators time block. I've been coaching Michelle Town for 5 years. She did 130 million last year, and she time blocks 2 hours a day religiously. And she is focused on income and relational activities during those 2 hours, which is why she has built her business to such great proportion.
Wow. Wow.
I honor that, and so I say, show up for yourself. And I now try to call it, your growth hour. This is all about you and your growth and fueling your business. Give yourself permission to show up for you, to build and grow your business an hour a day.
Wow. That's great. What are the top three things that could take a loan officer out? So we're in a market right now that is extraordinarily busy. Purchase market sizzling hot. Interest rates are low, which makes for a real fun, busy business. But we know what's coming. It could continue for quite some time, or we could have a market change. Over the years, you've seen loan officers go out of business, or
Mm.
you've seen loan officers still
Often.
in the business that could be or should have been retired by now. Why? What are the three things, three mistakes? I know there's many, but what are the top three that come to mind for you that loan officers do that they need to be careful of?
Over leverage. I think I watched it when 2007 hit and I was running the branch, and how many people that were doing extremely well lost their homes. Some of my best friends here in the branch lost their homes, their cars, everything, and debilitating. And honestly, Dan, like, I had a home fall out of escrow many years before. I was in escrow on a huge home, very expensive home, would have had an outrageous mortgage. And 30 days into the transaction, all contingencies were met, tied up in a bow. The seller canceled escrow on us.
Yeah.
And I was in Hawaii and I was so beside myself. And I said, he can't legally do that. I went and met with him and he said, I can't legally, and you can take me to court and you'll win, but I'm gonna fight you for 2 years because I can't find anything I want to move into. And I thought, who wants to take a house that way? Like, that didn't feel good to me. So we allowed that to dissolve and cancel the escrow. And after that, I made a decision to stay in our current home. And in 2007, I can tell you, that was like divine intervention, because I didn't have a $1.5 million mortgage. It would have been a whole different deal had we gone through with that. And we hit 2007 and I had no income. We couldn't pay anybody. I mean, it was awful, as so many of us went through. But so I think just being really intentional of looking at it. And I know it's easy when you're making a lot of money and we think the gravy train is going to go on, but as someone who's been through, like you, many different markets, and realize, like, literally, I remember calling Barry Habib before Barry had MBS Highway or any of that. And I remember calling Barry because he was a friend and saying, what do I do? And I locked a client's loan. And maybe this is the only time in history this happened, but rates went up 1.5% overnight, like skyrocketed. My client, and I locked him the night before, and that was because of Barry's advice. And my client thought I was a hero. But I'll tell you, like, we went from like doing tons of business to literally someone turned off the faucet overnight. And it hasn't happened in so many years, but it's very real and we've got to prepare for it. So one of the things that I love about some of the things that you speak to, this core speaks to this, is like not just making money, but saving money and being responsible. I cannot tell you, I coach a lot of people that make a lot of money and have an insane amount of debt.
Yeah.
So like when I went through my divorce, it was sort of my wake up call to say, I have to take control of my own personal financial future. And I've got to be super responsible here because I was the primary breadwinner. And obviously, you give away half of what you make and you look at things differently. But so that is one, I think, just really being financially literate, looking at your own financial situation to get your house stable and begin to save. I put money in 529 plans for my kids' college education, which turned out to be a beautiful thing. So one is just really not over leveraging yourself while times are good and planning for the future. I think secondly, one of the things I did right, which is why I had such banner years from time to time, was I never ever stopped working my purchase business, even though it's so tough when we get into refi booms where it's so flush with cash and there's so many opportunities. But every single day I called realtor partnerships and continued to build realtor partnerships regardless, never faltered. And that
Wow.
served me really well because I found I could be successful, really in any market. And then, I mean, obviously I'm a coach. I became a coach because I had such great coaches, but sometimes when I'm on the phone with clients, they talk, I just can't afford that. I'm like, but what people don't understand is that it doesn't have to be me, but hire somebody, get somebody that helps you grow to the next level as a human being, as a business person, because when you can't see things through your own lens all the time that clearly. I just hired a very expensive coach last week. And so I want them to look at me from a different lens and help guide me in a different way so I can continue to build and grow. But invest in yourself. Learn from some of the best. I mean, that's why I love Dave Savage's Mortgage Coach Productivity on Facebook, because it's such a great learning center. What you're doing on this podcast, such a great learning center. So education is part of my morning ritual, along with meditation, is at least 20 minutes of education every single day. So invest in yourself, invest in your growth, and be committed to grow each and every day. Just take those incremental steps. It pays off in spades.
Man, I hope everybody heard that. So um, don't over leverage yourself. In other words, save your money. The money you're making isn't going to continue forever. There'll be down times. There'll be, rough markets, and nothing destroys a loan officer or a family more, or your health more, than the stress that comes from losing assets or not being able to afford your life. And Cindy, that's a huge one. And the thing I've seen over the years as well is when loan officers stop with the purchase business, as soon as rates go up, loan officers' volumes disappear. So if you're not focused on the purchase business, a little bit every day or a little bit every week, even when rates are this low, there'll be a point in time that you're going to be hurt by that. If you want to build your mortgage business, you have to focus on relationships, even, and those relationships deliver when times get difficult. And then the third point Cindy made is to get help, to keep learning, to learn from someone, to strive to improve, have that that way of being. And I can speak from my observations of Cindy. She's always strived to learn from others. I see her at conferences and she's talking with all of them, and she's really striving to get the information needed so that she could become better in all the facets. I look forward to seeing what's next for Cindy, because she's up to so many things. And man, I wouldn't have guessed 20 years ago that all these things she'd be doing. I knew she was going to accomplish huge things, but holy cow. And I'm really excited to see what's next for her, because I know it's going to be
Oh,
pretty
thank you,
cool.
Dan.
Cindy, we can go, we can talk for another 2 hours.
I know we could.
I mean, there's so many things I wanted to get to, but maybe you'll come on again, will you?
Of course, I would love to. Are you kidding?
That's awesome. So Cindy, thank you so much. How can people get a hold of you? How can they inquire coaching from you? Or
The best way, my website is Cindy Ertman, ERTMAN.com. I've got 3 different coaching programs there. My high-level mortgage mastermind elite. I've got a 90-day jumpstart to mortgage success program that I'm actually turning into an online training that'll be launching by April. And then I've got one-on-one coaching that still involves training with me. I only have limited spots available for one-on-one coaching, but I do love to hear from people. I do offer exploratory calls to learn a little bit more about you and your business. I really just try to create some value for people and help them see maybe where they can potentially, take some steps to grow. And easiest to reach me at info@cindyertman.com. And that way my team makes sure that it goes into my calendar, because that's one thing I gave up 4 years ago, is managing my own calendar. So I'm all about productivity and focused on, where I can make the biggest difference. So
You practice what you preach for
I do.
sure. You for sure do. Cindy, thank you so much. Great
Thank you,
talking to you
Dan.
yesterday, and thank you so much for being on the show. And I look forward to talking to you again really soon.
Me too. Such a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
You bet. Talk to you soon.
Bye.